There comes a day when a man looks at his reflection and no longer recognizes the life he is living, not because he has failed, but because he has accepted too little from himself for far too long. He realizes that his pain was never his enemy. It was his invitation to rise. In that moment, something ancient awakens within him. A quiet fire whispers, "You were made for more." And from that whisper begins the sacred transformation of changing his standards. My friends, every life on this earth is governed by invisible laws, laws that respond not to what you wish for, but to what you demand of Uber, ourself. The difference between the extraordinary and the average is not talent, nor opportunity, it is standards. Life bends itself to the measure of what you refuse to tolerate any longer. When you say, "I will not live small," the universe rearranges itself to match your conviction. But when you lower your standards to fit comfort, the same universe closes its doors and says, "Then comfort is all you shall have." Understand this truth. Emotional and spiritual detachment is not a sign of indifference. It is a declaration of power. The moment you detach from needing approval, needing outcomes, needing the world to validate your worth, you step into divine authority. The weak cling, the strong release. Detachment is not coldness, it is clarity. It is seeing life as it is and knowing that nothing can threaten your peace unless you grant it permission. Every soul that has risen to greatness, Feber RST, walked through the fire of detachment. They lost, they wept, they released, and in that release they found themselves. You see, when you no longer chase what the world dangles before you, the world begins to chase you. When you no longer beg for love, love finds you. When you no longer fear loss, abundance flows through you. This is not mysticism, it is law. The law that governs creation responds only to the vibration of certainty, not desperation. You cannot hold power while holding fear. You cannot claim purpose while clinging to comfort. The bridge to transformation is built from the Stober NS of detachment. Each stone laid when you say, "I no longer need what I once thought I couldn't live without." And in that space of freedom, something miraculous occurs. You begin to attract only what matches your elevated standard. Because you have shifted your identity from seeker to creator, follower to master. To change your life, you must first change what you demand from yourself in silence. The man who says, "I will no longer be ruled by emotion, by fear, by circumstance," has already rewritten his destiny. Detachment is the sword that severs weakness from power. When you let go of what is beneath your calling, what remains is only truth, and truth always rises. Raise your standards not in arrogance, but in reverence for the power that created you. You are not meant to live at the mercy of your moods or the opinions of others. You are meant to command your inner world, to waber LK wit. The calm of one who knows that his destiny is secured not by circumstance, but by consciousness. The storms will come, but the detached man stands unmoved because he has built his foundation not on outcomes, but on principles. He does not say, "I will be happy when." He says, "I am unshakabarle now." Every time you lower your standard to please the world, you betray your spirit. And every time you lift it higher, you summon unseen forces to assist you. The moment you raise the standard of what you accept emotionally, spiritually, and mentally, you declare to the universe, "I have remembered who I am." That remembrance is the birthplace of miracles. Detachment does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop suffering over what you cannot control. It is the art of remaining centered while the world shifts around you. It is mastery over reaction, victory over chaos. When you detach from the need to control outcomes, you align with divine timing. What is meant for you finds you effortlessly because your energy no longer resists, it allows. My friends, life will always mirror your inner standard. If you live as though you are worthy of peace, peace becomes your companion. If you decide that you are done living beneath your potential, opportunities will conspire to meet you at your new altitude. But this transformation demands courage, the courage to detach from who you were so that you may step into who you were meant to be. Change your standards and your life will change, not slowly, not someday, but immediately, because your vibration, your decisions, your expectations, and your actions begin to operate on a higher law. You will notice that people respond differently. Doors open differently, and your inner world feels lighter. This is not coincidence, it is correspondence. As within, so without. Everything changes when you do. And that, my friends, is the secret of all transformation, detachment, clarity, and the unwavering decision to never again settle for less than your divine design. There is a moment in every person's life when they come face to face with THBRE, truth, of who they have become. It is not a moment wrapped in comfort or glory, but in a deep and quiet realization that something within has been compromised. Perhaps it began with small decisions, accepting less than you deserved, silencing your voice to keep the peace, or trading your purpose for temporary security. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, your standards eroded. And yet, it is in that very awareness, in that sacred discomfort, that transformation begins. For nothing changes until you decide that you will no longer tolerate the life you have outgrown. You see, standards are the invisible architecture of destiny. The world does not respond to your words. It responds to your energy, your boundaries, and the silent expectations you carry within. The universe does not give you what you want. It gives you what you are willing to settle for. If you tolerate mediocrity, it will multiply around you. If you expect greatness, the universe will rearrange itself to meet you there. But the question is, what do you truly expect from yourself? Not what you hope for, not what you dream of when the world is quiet, but what you will no longer accept as your truth. Because your standards determine the altitude of your life. Most people are trapped not by their circumstances, but by their attachments. They cling to people, habits, emotions, and identities that have long expired. They believe that to let go is to lose, when in truth to let go is to gain freedom. Emotional detachment is not the absence of care, it is the presence of clarity. It is the understanding that your peace is sacred, that no outcome, no opinion, no temporary setback has the right to disturb the balance of your soul. The man who learns detachment walks through life untouchable, not because the world stops testing him, but because he no longer reacts with fear. He sees with the eyes of wisdom. Detachment does not mean you stop feeling. It means your feelings no longer enslave you. It means you can witness your emotions, your thoughts, your desires, and your fears without allowing them to dictate your directio bor en. When you are detached, you become centered in your higher self, the part of you that is calm, powerful, and certain even in chaos. This is the source of true strength, for power is never loud. It does not shout. It moves quietly like a force of nature, certain of its own authority. The detached EBR individual lives from that place of power. He does not chase outcomes, he aligns with them. He does not beg for peace. He is peace. The reason most people never experience transformation is because they are emotionally tied to what limits them. They are attached to being liked, to being right, to being comfortable. But comfort is the coffin of growth. To elevate your life, you must raise your standards, and to raise your standards, you must first detach from everything that keeps you small. Detachment is the bridge between who you were and who you are meant to be. It demands courage, the Kurabur G, to walk away from familiar patterns, from approval, from validation, from control. It demands faith, the faith that when you release what no longer serves you, the divine will fill the empty space with something infinitely better. You cannot transform your life while clinging to the same emotions that created your current reality. You cannot hold on to anger, fear, jealousy, or self-doubt and still expect peace to bloom within you. These are the weights that keep your soul anchored to the ground. Detachment is not a punishment, it is liberation. When you detach, you remove the hooks of external control from your energy. You free your mind to focus on creation instead of reaction. You learn to move in harmony with the laws that govern abundance, peace, and success. You begin to realize that what you once called loss was actually alignment. What you once saw as rejection was protection. And what you once feared letting go of was never meant to stay. The great secret of life is this: you attract not what you chase, but what you embody. When you embody strength, opportunities that require strength appear. When you embody peace, situations that disturb your peace begin to dissolve. In you embody detachment, the world bends in your favor because nothing holds power over you anymore. You become like water fluid, adaptable, unstoppable. The river does not resist the rock, it simply flows around it. That is the wisdom of detachment. You stop fighting life, and life stops fighting you. To change your standards is to declare to the universe that the old version of you has expired. It is to say, I will no longer participate in my own suffering. I will no longer accept relationships that drain me, thoughts that weaken me, or habits that dishonor my spirit. It is a spiritual DBR decision. The moment you make it, forces unseen begin to move in your favor, but you must stand firm. For every time you raise your standard, the world will test it. It will ask, do you really mean it? And in those moments, your detachment will be your armor, because when you no longer need validation from the outside, you can no longer be manipulated by it. You were not born to live at the mercy of emotion or circumstance. You were born to master both. When you raise your standards, you begin to act as the creator rather than the victim of life. You begin to see that nothing happens to yober you, everything happens through you. Life mirrors your inner frequency. Change the vibration, and the reflection changes instantly. That is why transformation is never about forcing the outer world to bend to your will. It is about bending your inner world toward truth. The moment you do, everything external adjusts in divine precision. The detached man is not cold or indifferent. He is deeply alive, deeply aware, and deeply grounded in truth. He loves without possession, gives without expectation, and works without attachment to reward. He knows that everything temporary serves a purpose, and once that purpose is fulfilled, it must be released with gratitude. That is the highest form of power, to remain at peace in both abundance and loss, to be unshaken by the tides of fortune. Because in that state, you no longer serve the world's rhythm, you move with the rhythm of eternity. You must understand that raising your standards is not simply about ambition or success. It is about alignment with your highest self. It is about refusing to betray your inner truth for momentary comfort. It is about stepping into the divine authority that was yours from the beginning. When you live by low SBR standards, you silence your own potential. But when you lift them higher, you call forth the dormant greatness that has been waiting within you. You begin to see that what you once called miracles are simply the natural consequences of higher standards. So I ask you now, what will you no longer tolerate? What ini? What thought? What fear will you refuse to carry into your future? That decision, though invisible, will shape every visible outcome of your life. For change does not begin with action, it begins with a new inner decree, a declaration that says, I will live by a higher law. I will hold myself to a divine standard. I will no longer settle for what does not honor my purpose. And when that moment comes, when your spirit truly decides, everything changes. Not because the world suddenly becomes easier, but because you do. The challenges remain, but you meet them differently. The SBR storms return, but you walk through them untouched. The noise of the world continues, but it no longer disturbs your silence. That is the power of detachment, the essence of transformation, and the unshakable truth of raising your standards. There is a divine law that governs the fabric of your existence, a law that cannot be escaped, only understood. It states that the outer world is nothing more than a mirror reflecting the standards you have set within. Every situation you face, every person you attract, every opportunity or obstacle that appears before you is a precise reflection of your internal state. When you raise your standards, you raise the vibration of your being, and life responds in kind. When you settle, life simply echoes that mediocrity back to you. You see, life is not unfair, it is exact. It does not reward those who wish, it rewards those who decide. And the moment you decide to change what you are willing to accept, the entire structure of your destiny begins to rearrange itself. Too many people beg for change while clinging tightly to the very things that prevent it. They pray for abundance yet dwell in fear. They desire peace yet refuse to release control. They ask for love while remaining bound to resentment. And so their prayers go unanswered, not because the divine is deaf, but because they are double-minded. You cannot hold two opposing energies and expect harmony. You cannot say, "I want to be free," while your soul is shackled to emotional attachment battees that drain your strength. Detachment is the cleansing fire that burns away all illusions of control. It purifies your inner world so that the truth can finally reveal itself. When you detach, you create spiritual space for clarity, power, and peace to enter. You stop reacting from fear and begin responding from wisdom. You no longer chase after outcomes, you align yourself with them through faith and disciplined expectation. Detachment is the birthplace of divine confidence. For the man who is detached does not beg. He commands not with arrogance, but with authority born of alignment. His certainty comes not from ego, but from knowing that all things work according to higher order. He is not swayed by delay or denial because he knows that divine timing is never wrong. When you live in attachment, you live in resistance. You try to force outcomes, manipulate situations, or control others out of. Fear that without them you are incomplete. But what you cling to controls you. What you fear to lose, you have already surrendered power to. True freedom begins when you can look at what you love, what you desire, and what you fear losing and still remain at peace if it leaves. That PBREs is power. That calmness is mastery. To be unmoved in the face of uncertainty is to have discovered the secret chamber of strength within your own spirit. Understand this truth. The universe mirrors your inner temperature. If you are desperate, it reflects delay. If you are confident, it reflects BRS flow. If you are peaceful, it reflects alignment. Detachment allows your energy to stabilize, and a stable energy attracts stability. That is why when you stop chasing, the right things begin to chase you. When you stop needing, what is meant for you arrives without effort. It is not because you have become careless, but because you have become centered. You have ceased to send conflicting signals to creation. You have learned that control is not power. Control is fear disguised as certainty. Power is calm. Power is trust. Power is detachment. Each time you raise your standards, you must detach from what represents the lower version of yourself. You cannot hold on to old habits and expect new realities. You cannot cling to comfort and still rise in consciousness. The moment you set a higher standard, life will test you. It will present you with situations designed to measure your resolve or E. It will ask, will you fall back to what is familiar, or will you stand firm in what you now expect? And it is in those tests that detachment becomes your strength. For the detached man does not fight against life, he flows through it with grace. He does not panic when things fall apart. He on Dibber stands that breakdowns are the passage to breakthroughs. He does not mourn what he has lost, because he knows that loss is merely the clearing of space for something greater. Most people resist change because they confuse detachment with indifference. But indifference is the absence of love, while detachment is the highest expression of love. When you love without attachment, you love freely. You give without fear of depletion. You serve without need for recognition. You allow others to be as they are, and in doing so, you honor their divine journey as well as your own. The attached person says, "I love you because you make me feel complete." The detached soul says, "I love you because love is what I am." One is rooted in dependence, the other in divinity. Detachment does not make you less human. It makes you more divine. It lifts you above the emotional storms that once controlled you over you. It gives you perspective, allowing you to see every event, every disappointment, every delay as part of a larger design. When you are detached, you are no longer addicted to outcomes. You have mastered patience. You no longer fear uncertainty because you understand that uncertainty is simply the space where miracle form. The most powerful people in history were not those who controlled the most, they were those who trusted the most. They surrendered not in weakness, but in wisdom. They knew that the river of life flows toward their purpose, and their only task was to remain aligned and faithful. Raising your standards begins with a sacred choice, to honor your divine worth. You were not created to live in constant reaction to circumstances. You were created to command them through the strength of your inner vibration. But that power cannot be accessed through attachment, because attachment lowers your frequency to the level of fear and dependence. Detachment, however, raises you to the realm of peace and clarity, where your thoughts and emotions become instruments of creation rather than chaos. When you detach, your words carry power because they are no longer desperate, they are deliberate. Your silence becomes commanding because it is rooted in inner certainty. Do not mistake detachment for apathy. A detached soul can love deeply, serve humbly, and dream boldly. But he does so without desperation. He is no longer addicted to results. His joy is not postponed until success arrives. It is present even in waiting. His faith is not shaken by delay, it is strengthened by it. Because he knows that life cannot withhold what matches his standard. The law of correspondence ensures that your inner vibration will always call forth matching experiences. Therefore, if you wish to change your life, raise your standard of energy, speak with purpose, think with purity, expect with confidence, and release the rest. Detachment is the quiet confidence that everything you desire is already finding its way to you, so there is no need to chase or force. It is the understanding even apparent losses are part of divine orchestration. When you detach, you cease to argue with reality. You stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and begin saying, "What is this teaching me?" That shift alone transforms suffering into wisdom and pain into power. Detachment is the discipline of faith, the ability to trust without proof, to rest without fear, to believe without needing control. When you change your standards, the vibration of your life changes instantly. The people who once fit in your life will feel distant. The opportunities that once appealed to you will lose their luster. This is not rejection, it is refinement. You are ascending, and what once matched your energy no longer can. Detachment allows you to let these things go with grace, not resentment. You no longer chase closure because you no longer need it. The higher you rise, the lighter you must become, and detachment is the art of traveling light. The truth is, you cannot serve two masters. You cannot serve fear and faith, attachment and freedom, control and peace. You must choose who you will be. The moment you decide, your energy stabilizes. The moment you detach, your power returns. The moment you RBRAs your stander, the universe responds. That is how transformation happens, not in noise, not in struggle, but in silent decision. The decision to no longer live beneath your divine potential, to no longer be moved by temporary emotion, to no longer mistake attachment for love or fear for care. Change your standards, and everything around you will be restructured to match your new level of consciousness. Life cannot resist alignment. It will always meet you where you stand internally. So stand tall, stand in faith, stand detached from all that weakens you and deeply connected to all that hours you. For when you are detached, you are no longer chasing change, you are the change. Gents. Many people misunderstand detachment and believe it means abandoning desire. But desire itself is sacred. Desire is the whisper of the divine calling you toward expansion. What must be abandoned is not desire, but dependence. There is a vast difference between wanting something and needing it to feel complete. When you want something from a state of wholeness, you attract it naturally. When you need it to validate your worth, you repel it unconsciously. The energy of detachment allows your desires to unfold freely because your spirit is no longer heavy with fear or need. You are no longer begging life to prove your value. You are expressing your value through your peace. Detachment also transforms the way you perceive time. The attached person lives in constant anxiety, bound by the illusion that life must unfold according to their schedule. They grow impatient, frustrated, and fearful, creating more resistance that delays what they desire. But the detached soul understands that time is not the enemy, it is the instrument of divine order. What is meant to be yours is already on its way, arriving in perfect sequence. When you trust this truth, your enigma why becomes light and magnetic. You no longer rush, you prepare. You no longer worry, you expect. That calm expectation becomes a silent prayer that calls miracles into motion. There is great beauty in learning to release with grace. Most people cling to things long after their purpose has been served, relationships that have reached their season's end, ambitions that no longer align with their soul, identities that no longer fit who they have become. They hold on because they fear the void. But it is only in the void that renewal is born. Every ending is sacred preparation for a greater beginning. Burgee. Detachment allows you to bless what is leaving and make room for what is arriving. You learn that holding on to what no longer serves you is not loyalty, it is self-betrayal. And in the quiet courage of letting go, you reclaim your power. When you detach, you begin to see life with greater clarity. Emotions no longer dictate your perception. You stop reacting to every change in circumstance and start observing with wisdom. You realize that no external event has the power to define your inner state unless you grant it permission. This realization marks the birth of mastery. True freedom is no liberty found in changing the external world. It is found in mastering your internal one. The detached person walks through chaos with stillness in their eyes. They may face storms, but their peace remains unbroken because they have anchored their identity in something deeper than the temporary. To live detached is to live in alignment with truth. It is to know that nothing you truly need can ever be taken from you, and nothing you lose was ever essential to your purpose. It is to understand that every experience, pleasant or painful, is perfectly orchestrated for your awakening. This awareness dissolves BRS fear and transfo. RMS even the most difficult moments into sacred lessons. When you no longer resist what life brings, you begin to see that even loss carries light, even endings carry wisdom, and even pain carries divine intelligence. Detachment teaches you to trust that the universe is always conspiring for your growth, even when the process feels uncomfortable. You cannot raise your standards and remain emotionally enslaved. You cannot demand abundance while clinging to scarcity in your thoughts. You cannot claim peace while feeding chaos with your attention. Detachment is the alignment between what you declare and what you embody. It is choosing calm over conflict, faith over fear, wisdom over reaction. Every time you choose peace when chaos calls, you strengthen your spiritual muscles. Every time you release what no longer aligns, you expand your capacity to receive more. Life rewabber RDS the detached because detachment signals trust, and trust is the foundation of divine partnership. The moment you raise your standards and release attachment, everything that once seemed uncertain begins to move in your favor. Opportunities align, people shift, and circumstances unfold with per ion. What once required force now happens with flow. It is as though life had been waiting for you to remember your power all along. For life mirrors not what you wish, but what you believe you deserve. And the detached soul believes they deserve peace, fulfillment, and purpose not because they demand or endy it, but because they embody it. They no longer chase blessings, they become the vessel through which blessings flow. There is a quiet revolution that happens within you when you realize you do not need to control life to enjoy it. You become light. You stop carrying the burden of constant worry, and in that release you begin to experience a freedom that cannot be explained, only felt. This is the essence of transformation, not the accumulation of more, but the shedding of what was never yours to hold. Every time you detach, you rise. Every time you release, you return to your true nature. When you learn to live in detachment, you awaken to the beauty of now. The present moment stops being a bridge to somewhere else. It becomes enough. You stop measuring your worth by external achievements because you finally understand that the divine lives within you. And when that realization anchor bursts in your heart, you are no longer bound by circumstance, by loss, or by uncertainty. You become unshakable. You live with grace, act with power, and walk with peace because your foundation is built on truth. And that truth is eternal. You are not defined by what you hold, but by what you are willing to release. So let the world spin as it may. Let people come and go. Let seasons change and storms rise. Stand firm in the knowing that what is meant for you will never require you to betray your peace to keep it. Detachment is not the end of passion. It is the purification of it. It is the moment your soul stow. P.S. begging life for scraps and begins commanding it with silent authority. When you reach that place, everything changes not because you have gained more, but because you have finally remembered who you are. There comes a point in your journey when you realize that all the striving, all the chasing, and all the effort to control life have led you in circles. You reach a sacred exhaustion, the kind that no sleep can heal, because it is not the body that is tired, but the soul. Tired of pretending, tired of forcing, tired of waiting for the world to confirm what has always been true within you. In that moment of stillness, something shifts. You stop fighting the current and begin to float. You stop begging life to change and begin to change yourself. And this, my friends, is the essence of transformation. Everything begins the moment you release the need to hold on. Most people live or be as prisoners of their own attachments. They cling to identities that have expired, people who have fulfilled their purpose and goals that no longer align with who they are becoming. They confuse persistence with wisdom and mistake resistance for strength. But true strength is not in holding on, it is in knowing when to let go. The river does not resist the mountain, it finds a way through it. The wind does not cling to the trees, it passes and purifies. The sun does not apologize for setting, it knows that in its absence the moon must rise. Life flows in divine rhythm, and detachment is your invitation to join that rhythm. To detach is to declare, I trust. It is the ultimate expression of faith, the quiet conviction that everything is unfolding in perfect order even when the path is hidden. Detachment is not passivity, it is participation without obsession. It is the ability to work with complete focus, yet remain at peace if the outcome differs from expectation. It is saying, I will give my best and I trust the rest. That trust makes you unshakable. It transforms uncertainty into opportunity, failure into feedback, and delay into divine preparation. When you detach, you no longer question the timing of your blessings, you prepare for them. Detachment does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop suffering over what you cannot control. You still love deeply, but your love becomes pure because it is free from possession. You still dream boldly, but your dreams are no longer poisoned by fear. You still work hard, but your work flows from joy rather than desperation. Detachment refines the energy behind every action. When you are attached, your energy says, I lack. When you are detached, your energy says, I trust. One repels, the other attracts. This is why those who have mastered detachment move through life with ease. They are not lucky, they are aligned. Life is a mirror. It does not reflect what you want, it reflects what you are. If you are desperate, you attract chaos. If you are calm, you attract clarity. If you are detached, you attract divine TBRI Ming, the world Riren. Jez itself according to your vibration. You cannot lie to life. It listens to your energy, not your words. You may say you trust, but if fear governs your heart, life will echo that fear back to you. Detachment purifies your energy until it becomes an open channel for higher guidance. When you stop grasping, you start receiving. When you stop demanding, you start allowing. That is the sacred paradox of all creation. When you let go, things finally fall into place. The greatest illusion is the belief that control brings peace. Control brings tension, only surrender brings peace. The more you try to force outcomes, the more resistance you create. Detachment dissolves that resistance. It opens your hands to receive what is truly yours. Because what is meant for you will never require manipulation to keep it. What is aligned with your spirit will flow toward you naturally once you stop blocking it with fear. This is the secret the wise have always known. Life is not conquered, it is collaborated with. You are not here to control creation, you are here to co-create with it. Raising your standards begins with detachment from the old. Every elevation requires separator ion from old habits, old doubts, and old patterns of thought. The higher your vibration, the less you can carry. The person you were at a lower standard cannot accompany you to your next level. You must be willing to release even the familiar if it no longer serves your growth. Detachment is the fervor E that burns away all that is false so that truth can stand revealed. It is not an act of loss, it is an act of purification. Each time you detach, you lighten the load of your spirit, and with that lightness comes clarity, confidence, and power. There is a divine stillness that comes from detachment, a peace that the world cannot imitate. It is the calm of knowing that you are guided, even in confusion. It is the quiet assurance that the same force that spins the planets and paints the sunrise also directs your steps. When you live in detachment, you begin to see the divine intelligence in every bar-y event. You stop labeling experiences as good or bad. You simply see them as necessary. Everything that enters your life is either a gift or a lesson, and both serve your evolution. Detachment allows you to extract wisdom from pain, strength from struggle, and gratitude from loss. Most people live reactive lives because they are emotionally entangled with everything that happens around them. One harsh word can ruin their peace. One setback can shatter their confidence. They live at the mercy of circumstances because they have not learned to master themselves. But the detached soul is different. He walks through chaos with calm. He feels deeply but is not consumed by emotion. His power lies in his stillness. He understands that when you finally understand the power of detachment, you awaken to the truth that nothing outside you has ever held authority over your destiny. You become moved by chaos, untouched by doubt and unshaken by delay. You begin to live from a center of divine calm that nothing can corrupt. Detachment is not the absence of desire, it is the mastery of it. It is the moment you rise above the illusions of control and realize that life bends not to those who force it, but to those who trust it. You stop running after what is temporary and start building what is eternal. You no longer seek validation from the world because your validation comes from the quiet knowing that you are aligned with your Creator's plan. You cease to chase love, success, or Peeber's CE because you have become love, success, and peace. That is the power of inner transformation. It reverses the flow. Instead of moving toward what you want, you draw it toward you. The moment you release your attachments, the universe takes a deep breath and says, now, you are ready. Ready to wreck Bar Eve. Ready to rise. Ready to rule your inner kingdom. For the soul that has mastered detachment cannot be enslaved by fear, failure, or fate. Such a soul becomes unstoppable, free in mind, pure in purpose, and guided by something far greater than circumstance. Change your standards and your life will change. But change your attachment to outcomes, and your soul will ascend. For in the stillness of detachment, you will discover the greatest truth of all. You were never waiting for the world to change. Life was waiting for you to let go. And when you do, everything changes.